Hello, my name is Eon-Seong. I'd like to present my paper. The title is Re-globalisation and Supply Chain Reshoring, Motivation and Performance of Global Companies in Korea. In past decades, with the rapid globalization of markets and production factors, international companies relocated their overseas production bases to countries with low production costs. Increasing foreign direct investment also facilitated these offshoring movements, which tended to have various strategic motives. As a result, the global supply chains of international companies widened geographically and became increasingly complex. However, in recent years, there have been many changes in foreign investment patterns, such as the restructuring of the global supply chain. In contrast to the previous trend of expanding overseas production, many companies have moved their overseas production bases back to their home countries. The business decision to revise an existing offshoring strategy and relocate a foreign production base back in the home country is termed reshoring. Governments of home countries tend to expect considerable benefits from reshoring growth, including the creation of new jobs and the stimulation of economic recovery. In accordance with this shift in global supply chain management, the following questions arise. For example, what precisely are global companies' motivations for reshoring? And do reshoring strategies truly help companies improve their performance? Second, do international companies that are actively reshoring in less advanced countries have the same motivations as those in developed countries? And is their performance similarly improved? Thirdly, do the expected effects of reshoring apply equally to all countries, or are greater effects expected in a particular industry, such as traditional manufacturing or the advanced technology industry? In order to answer to these research questions, the purpose of this study is to systematically examine companies' reshoring motivations and organizational performance. This study also empirically investigates whether home countries and the industrial types of reshoring companies can control reshoring motivations and performance. The result of this study may have strategy implications for companies planning to reshore in the future from the perspective of global supply chain management. Many studies have explored the reshoring motivations of global firms, and one of the most important motives identified has been the cost factor. In general, foreign investment decisions of companies have been based on the lower costs and wages that can often be found abroad. Recently, however, these cost reduction benefits have been waning. Labor wages in local countries have begun to rise, while productivity has not been as high as expected. In addition, as offshoring has proliferated across the globe, supply chains have become more complex, increasing the cost of global logistics. There is a study which suggested that reshoring decisions cannot be explained on the basis of cost alone, pointing out that small and medium-sized enterprises have recently been transferring their manufacturing processes from low-cost countries to high-cost home countries. This may be due to a lack of skilled workers in the host country and a resulting loss in innovation potential. This may lead to a poor quality of offshore production. Furthermore, as the complexity of global supply chains has increased with an increasing number of coast countries, companies faced reduced operational flexibility, and at the same time, increased global logistics and supply chain coordination costs. Therefore, companies may return production to their home countries to lower these costs. In addition, offshoring presented a risk of losing know-how to local companies. Yet another reason behind the decisions to reshore is to reacquire the made-in effect from producing in home countries. Based on the existing literature, this study categorizes reshoring drives into the following 7 factors: quality improvement and brand image enhancement agenda, response to changes in country factor costs, reconfiguration, and restructured cost. Enhanced innovation capability, improved customer responsiveness, risk management, and supply dependability, and institutions. This study empirically analyzes the reshoring motivations of international firms in terms of these 7 factors. Okay, let's move to reshoring performance. Existing studies on the performance of reshoring companies have focused mainly on the economic effects on the home country. For example, Eurofound suggested that the job creation effect of reshoring is high in Europe. However, although reshoring's importance has been recognized, its actual contribution to a home country's economy is limited. Meanwhile, other studies pointed out that the economic effects of reshoring are still being actively debated. Although the debate on the actual effects of reshoring countries, many advanced countries have adopted policies to support reshoring. Not showing consistent results, the aforementioned findings imply that reshoring can have positive or negative effects on the home country economy. However, most studies have predominantly focused on the economic effects of reshoring in a home country, but few studies have empirically analyzed the performance of individual reshoring companies. Therefore, this study will examine whether individual companies' reshoring decisions have a positive effect on their performance. The major determinants of companies' reshoring decisions include country factors, production flexibility, quality improvement, brand image enhancement, risk management, and cost savings in supply chain management. However, the motives of reshoring companies may differ by country or industry. For example, studies on reshoring by American and German businesses show clear differences between the two countries. American businesses consider production cost as a major motivation to reshore, while German businesses tend to emphasize qualitative factors such as supply elasticity or product quality improvement. Meanwhile, Japan has implemented reshoring incentives policies to stimulate local industries and economies. For example, the former Prime Minister Abe designated a total of 10 national strategic special zones through Japan, advocating for deregulations to foster regional industries so that overseas Japanese companies could return home. As a result, many Japanese companies returned to take advantage of the strong incentives, which also succeeded in attracting more foreign companies to Japan. In this sense, as we discussed, the motives of reshoring companies may differ by country or industry. In this sense, this paper develops the following 4 hypotheses. Hypothesis 1, global companies' motivation for reshoring differs from country to country. Hypothesis 2, global companies' motivation for reshoring differs from industry to industry. This study also assumes the performance of the reshoring may differ being based according to different industry and countries too. In this sense, the two hypotheses are added. Hypothesis 3, global companies' reshoring performance varies from country to country. Hypothesis 4, global companies' reshoring performance varies from industry to industry. So these are the 4 hypotheses of this paper. Table 1 shows the variables and measurements for the empirical analysis. This paper empirically analyzed the differences between countries in terms of reshoring motivation and performance, using the examples of the US, Japan, and Korea. Data were collected from international companies with subsidiaries in Korea and with headquarters in the US, Japan, and Korea. While the US ranks first based on their GDP, and Japan ranks third, and Korea ranks 12th. This indicates that the level of economic development is very high in the US and Japan, and relatively lower in Korea. Meanwhile, sample firms were identified using Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency, KOTRA. KOTRA's directory of global firms that had entered Korea, a Korean government organization under the Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Energy. KOTRA provides publicly credible data on foreign investment and trade to the public regularly. There were a total of 2,078 companies, and a survey was conducted by 500 randomly selected companies. We filtered the sample companies by asking whether they had at least one reshoring experience. The survey targets were limited to employees who were at the team leader level or higher who were familiar with the headquarters' international management strategy. Over a period of 1.5 months in 2020, a total of 53 individuals responded to the survey. There were 30 American companies, 12 Japanese companies, and 11 Korean companies. To test the hypothesis, we analyzed the differences in reshoring motivations in the 3 countries by conducting a one-way analysis of variance ANOVA using IBM basis. This method aimed to detect differences in motivation across countries. These results are presented in tables. You can see this table 2, differences in reshoring motivation by country, reconfiguration, and restricted cost factors. Table 3 shows the differences in reshoring motivations by country. This table shows customer service sectors. This table shows the supply chain efficiency and flexibility sectors. And this table 5, this table shows the risk management factors. And this table shows the labor factors. And this table shows the country factors of the reshoring motivation by country. So these results show that while there are no differences in the reshoring motivations in terms of the reconfiguration and restricted cost factors, but there are statistically significant differences in the customer service factor among the 3 countries. The post-hoc analysis show that the US and Japan are categorized in the same group, while Korea is different, showing that the means for the US and Japan are higher than those of Korea. This result implies that companies in the US and Japan make reshoring decisions to improve their customer service more than Korean companies do. Also, there are no differences in reshoring motivation in terms of supply chain efficiency and the flexibility factor, but there are statistically significant differences in the risk management factor among the 3 countries, partially in the 2 items, RM2 and RM5. The post-hoc analysis showed that The means of the three countries are all different, with Korea having the highest mean and followed by the US and Japan. And the reshoring motivation in terms of the labor and country factors. US and Japan are in the same group with higher mean values than those of the Korea in the LF1 and LF2 factors. This implies that the US and Japan are more motivated by the skill, the workforce availability, and labor productivity in their home countries than is Korea. Regarding the country factors, country factor 1 and 4, US and Japan are in the same group with higher means than that of Korea. This suggests that companies in the US and Japan are more motivated to utilize local resources compared to Korean companies. And these are the results of the reshoring motivation by country. This table shows the differences in reshoring performance by country. The reshoring performance of the countries are different in terms of cost-saving factors. While the US and Japan are in the same group, both with mean values above 3.0, Korea had a mean value of 2.6. Although for the two cost factors, the mean values of the US and Japan are slightly higher than that of Korea. A mean value of mid 3 points means that cost-saving performance would not be substantial. Meanwhile, the Korean company's mean value of mid 2 points ensures that these companies' reshoring performance would be very low in terms of cost savings. Regarding the organizational performance factor, the US and Japan have higher mean values than that of Korea, and this difference is statistically significant. This implies that compared to Korea, the US and Japan are more proactive about expanding into new business markets and entering into new industry sectors using reshoring strategies. To test the hypothesis 3, we classified the responding companies into the following two industry types: the traditional manufacturing industry and the advanced technology industry. There are 35 companies in the traditional manufacturing category and 18 in advanced technology industry. First, the traditional manufacturing companies focuses on achieving economies of scale using existing manufacturing techniques. In this industry, labor productivity and cost and resource efficiency are expected to more strongly impact of offshoring motivation. The second type of industry requires the development of new innovative technologies and has been profoundly affected by the fourth industrial revolution. Semiconductors, solar power generation, technology test and inspection services, OLED, fine chemical materials, solar cell development, and information communication services are examples of this type of industry. This type requires more highly skilled manpower for research and production rather than simply requiring an inexpensive workforce. Therefore, more advanced infrastructure in R&D and production areas can be a determining factor in reshoring. To test the hypothesis 4, we conducted a t-test to compare the mean differences between the two industry types. This table shows the result. There are few differences in reshoring motivation and performance by industry type, except for 5 factors. They are CS4, RM1, 2, and 3, LF3, and OL2. Regarding CS4, knowledge and technology-based industry have a higher mean value than that of traditional manufacturing, and the difference is statistically significant. This result implies that when making reshoring decisions, companies in the knowledge and technology-based industry are more motivated to seek a new product mix with novel value than are companies in the traditional manufacturing industry. Regarding risk management factors, the traditional manufacturing industry shows a higher mean value than that of the knowledge and technology-based industry. This suggests that compared to companies in the traditional manufacturing industry, those in the knowledge and technology-based industry are more risk-taking, and that in their reshoring decisions, they are less motivated by the need for risk management. For the labor factor, the two industries both have low mean values, but the value is lower in the traditional manufacturing industry. This implies that although labor cost saving is not a strong source of motivation in both industries, the level of motivation is lower in the knowledge and technology-based industry. But regarding the OI2 performance factor, the knowledge and technology-based industry has a higher mean value than that of the traditional manufacturing industry. This implies that compared to companies in the traditional manufacturing industry, companies in the knowledge and technology-based industry are more proactive about expanding to new business markets and entering into new industry sectors using reshoring strategies. Having presented the above results in the local context, this research supports the hypothesis 1, 2, 3, and 4 in a partial manner.